Hello and welcome to another FAQ Monday. I'm your host, Fluff. If you have a question, feel free to leave them on down below. Or go on over to, just leave them down below. Or tweet at me. I'm asking Twitter a lot of questions. Twitter's coming through with some great questions. So, I see you, Twitter. I see you. Let's go outside! Draven asks, how do I know when it's time to refret as opposed to a level and crown? That's a great question. So let's define the differences. A refret is obviously a total refret. A level and crown is typically done when you're trying to fix a localized issue, meaning you have a high spot on the 12th and 13th frets of a couple of strings, right? A level is going to go over all the frets and level them out and make sure they're all uniform. Now, typically, that is the fix for most situations. For example, a lot of like the 2012, 2013 Gibsons I've ever had, brand new guitars, I had to get fret leveled right out of the case because they were like literally just unplayable past the 12th fret. So that's level and crown. A refret you would want to do if obviously the frets are low or divoted. Hang on. I'm gonna put this over here. Okay, so this is my 77 RD Artist, and my elbow is gonna bump this Topo Chico, I know it. This is my 77 Gibson RD Artist. I had this refretted when I got it because the frets had been leveled so much, a level taking off material, right, to make them all uniform and level. It had been fret leveled so many times, the frets were barely indistinguishable from the actual fretboard. It was literally almost a fretless guitar. So of course, I needed to get it refretted. Also, I bought this guitar to gig with. This was my gig guitar because I didn't want to gig with my standard, my 77 standard. So this was my Rest Repose guitar. And while I was at it, I went ahead and had stainless steel frets installed. So there was a dual utilitarian purpose there. But for most purposes, if you have a fret issue, a level and crown is going to address most of those issues. But you should let a tech decide which one you need, not you. Which DAW or plugin would you recommend for mastering? Good question, Mr. Fury of the Falcon Nag. Thank you very much for your question on Twitter. Twitter, never mind. Which DAW or plugin would I recommend for mastering? Mastering, I like to use loosely because it's not mastering like what you or I would do. An actual mastering engineer does so much more than slap on a couple of plugins, but I get I get the essence of your question. You're trying to finalize your music. You're trying to finalize a mix, right? You can do that in any DAW. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to another DAW just to master, although, a DAW like Studio One has its own dedicated mastering suite built within it, which is cool, but for most of the time, I just stick with whatever, I recommend you stick with whatever DAW you're most comfortable in, right? So mastering is not dependent on your DAW. However, for plugins, that hole is deep, my friend. A good clean mastering plugin is Isotope Ozone 9. There's also, you can build out your plugin chain. Good friends of mine, Submission Audio, just put out a mastering grade clipper, which is, I think, $150. That is fantastic sounding. There's also, I like Universal Audio's BX Master Desk, which is a dedicated plugin. Slate has FGX. Honestly though, Isotope's Ozone 9 is pretty top of the mountain as far as, trying to do the stuff yourself. And they're running sales all the time. There's a couple of different levels of Ozone, but Isotope Ozone, for me, is generally pretty damn good. Is there a band or artist that people would never guess you liked? Thank you for the question, Thick44. Thick. An artist or band that people would never guess I liked. I don't know. I think I've mentioned most of those, maybe in passing. I really like, I mean, I don't think anyone would be surprised that I really like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I do like Willie Nelson. I do like Dolly Parton. I'm a huge Dolly Parton fan. I'm a huge Elvis fan. Let's see, I've mentioned, you know, artists like Katy Perry, The Weeknd, Drake. I don't know if anyone would be surprised that I like anything. Maybe the Dolly Parton. Yeah, I'm a huge Dolly Parton fan. I'm a huge Trixie Mattel fan, who's a drag queen, who's also a really, really great guitar player. And my girlfriend follows her YouTube channel. Yeah, Trixie Mattel. Trixie Mattel is awesome and a very, very good singer and songwriter. So yeah, those are some, to name many, that people might be shocked to hear that I enjoy. What's your go-to beard oil these days? It's looking lush AF. Thank you, Mr. Alex. Is it? I mean, I guess. Actually, I just started kind of trimming it. I actually don't use oil. I don't use beard oil. Although I have started conditioning it in the shower. Used to, like, you know, shampoo, conditioner, and then, but now I do conditioner. And I think that helps. The reason I do like oil, I like the smell of oil, I like the function of oil. I don't like oil when it's time to go to bed at night, because then you wake up with like a oily, it's kind of messy. And I don't like that. So I don't typically use beard oil. But if I did, Manscaped has some good beard oil. I don't know, I'm not too up on the beard oils. Maybe I should venture back out into that world? I don't know, I try them sometimes and then I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then I like kind of just forget about them, or I don't use them often enough and they go bad, you know. But conditioning and shampoo, combing it out right after the shower, combing it out with a boar bristle brush, and yeah, that's about it. Thoughts on fan fret guitars, and or what are your thoughts on 8 and 9 string guitars? I think 8 and 9 string guitars are pretty niche and they're not for most people. A lot of people play them that don't necessarily require them, but that's up to the player. An 8 or 9 string is having like a really, really long piano, right? I think they're not for me, for sure. But yeah, they definitely have their place, certainly. You know, if you're Josh Travis, if you're, you know, Tosin Abasi, if you're a master at the instrument, yeah, okay, sure. What do I think of fan fret guitars? I think they also certainly have their place. Not really for me personally, but they absolutely serve a purpose. They're great for detuning and keeping, you know, uniform tension on strings, and for down tuning, extended range stuff, etc., etc. They're cool, and I've played a few. The more severely fanned guitars I found difficult to play, but otherwise you don't really notice. On a good fan fret guitar, you don't really notice that you're playing a fan fret guitar, which is, I think, how it should be. But you know, fan fret guitars are cool. They can hang too. They can come to the party. Hey Fluff, got a bass question. When recording bass, do you prefer the bass to be active or passive? I'm only asking because I've been using my Fender PJ, J pickup not used, but I am currently looking at getting an active jazz bass, probably from Sire. Thank you, Dustin Self, for your question. Honestly, I don't care. I don't care if it's active or passive. I don't have a preference. I care that it sounds good. That's it. You know, an active bass will be punchier, a little bit more compressed, a little bit more low end, a little bit more top end, cleaner sounding. And depending on the part, you know, if you're in like a prog band or something like that, that's definitely called for. You know, a P bass will cover so much ground. A jazz bass will cover so much ground as well. You know, a passive versus active, I don't know, man. It doesn't really matter. It could be genre specific, but you didn't give the genre that you were playing. But I'm gonna assume it's some sort of rock context, but if you're thinking about this question, maybe you are playing like, prog or genty, detuned stuff. I don't know. If you were detuning, I would go for the active bass because that preamp is gonna be cleaner and maintain the low end better. But otherwise, if you're in anything, higher than drop B, or drop C, go passive. But you know what? Active's okay too. They can come to the party as well. You know what? This is an inclusive party today. Everyone's welcome. Thoughts on the new Architects songs? I think the Architects songs are great. I'm a huge fan of Architects. They're my boys. Shout out to Adam and Josh. I like how they're tuning up again. Where are you gonna go from the detuning thing when you're so low from their older stuff? I like the tightness of the new songs. I like the structure of the new songs. I like the corner they have taken as a band, both musically and sonically. Sounds very good, sounds very clean, and a million bands are gonna probably rip off the riffs, which is, that's okay. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, in my opinion. I'm referencing the Doomsday song that everyone ripped off. But yeah, huge fan of Architects, huge fan of the new songs. Can't wait to hear the whole record. And that does it for this FAQ Monday. If you have a question, tweet it at me or leave it down below in the comments and we'll get you on a future episode of FAQ Mondays. Fluff out. If you enjoyed the video that you just watched, please consider subscribing. It helps me, help you, and then in turn you get more stuff to watch. And also I have all sorts of stuff down in the description of this video. Sweetwater giveaway stuff. There's all sorts of links to all sorts of things. So consider checking that out as well if you're gonna hang. But if you don't hang, all good. I still love you.